An interesting article that came up on the Debka site. I'll post this link on there, but it's talking about the even before the Arab sanctions were put against Syria by the Arab League, 7 of Syria's neighbors are on alert because of possible retaliation by Syria, and Russia's sending missiles to Assad to break the blockade. So, military, according to their sources, they said military sources, whatever the heck they are, you never know. Report Israeli armored brigades push forward up to the Lebanese and Syrian borders. Ankara placed 3 armored brigades, its air forces and navy in a state of preparation. Likewise, Hezbollah and Lebanese and Jordanian armed forces, while the U.S. and Russia are in the midst of a naval buildup opposite Syrian shores. So obviously, this isn't just a bunch of talk now. This is going to happen. Military sources in the Gulf report that 150 Iranian Revolutionary Guard specialists had landed at a military airport south of Damascus on their way to Lebanon to join Hezbollah, which began bringing its rockets out of their hideouts, according to the story. Ahead of the Arab League vote, Qatar and Turkey were reported to be airlifting volunteers, quote unquote, from Libya to fight alongside the rebel-free Syrian army, some also transporting weapons, whereas Russia has begun another airlift to deliver top-notch missiles for Assad's forces. And I'm talking, I guess that's against the no-fly zone and everything, too. Uh, this looks like this is coming down for real. This is coming down soon. So, and it's all blink with Iran because, they wouldn't want to do a strike against Iran when they have other people in the area that could attack Israel and with all this type of stuff. So it's more logical to knock out, to get rid of the leadership in Syria. But in the case of Assad, this guy is not a good guy. He's not like Gaddafi. Gaddafi, I know he was a dictator, and if you're one of the people that were hurt by Gaddafi, he's the worst guy in the world. But overall, he was about the best dictator you could find in that area. As far as Assad goes, I have no problem with them knocking him out. That would actually be a good thing. Or they're talking about they had an ambush against some of Assad's elite people in one area, and it says their source at Debka added that the rebel army must have penetrated into the highest levels of Syria's military intelligence command before the attack and was clearly receiving targeting data from inside the armed forces. So it looks like Syria is probably going to go down pretty fast. But not the whole country, it's going to be the regime. Now, in the case of Syria, I mean, that place is a freaking harsh police state. This is not Libya. I personally don't have a problem with this at all. But you know, uh, I think a lot of this is playing into again what Lindsey Williams said. Destabilizing the Middle East. I would think this would bring the price of oil up, even though maybe it's not going to interrupt Syria's oil production, or and Syria's not a major oil producer. It's you compare to some other countries in the region, they're below 500,000 barrels a day, but still that's a significant amount. I'm not sure what it's going to mean economically. I keep thinking about, I know Lindsey Williams' predictions are also, I think it was General Wesley Clark was talking about this years ago too. The same thing about what countries are going to go down and what the policy was going to be. But first, if the Iranian regime ought to deal, I mean, they'd be a lot smarter to do that in the long run. Because in the short run, it doesn't look like what they're doing is the smartest thing for survival. So the first thing you want to do is survive, so you're going to deal. But as far as this happening right away, this is going to look like a bunch of talk. This is going to happen right away. So, but I don't think it's going to last like anything like Syria, Libya did. I think Assad has got a lot of enemies within his country. In the case of Gaddafi, most of the people over there loved him, you know. So, I mean, that's why he wasn't toppled fast, because he had a heck of a lot of public support. I'm not saying the policy of knocking out Gaddafi was right, but in the case of Assad, that probably would be a good thing. Now, as far as how this is all going to play out in the markets or anything, the only thing I could see is I think this might cause oil to go up. People are going to be fearful what's going to happen, as far as what's going to happen in the next step. Is going to be interruptions. People are going to be second guessing what's coming on. And a lot of people that invest, they make emotional decisions too. Um, I know it's kind of a cold thing to say, to think of it that way, but you think about it, individuals have absolutely no voice in what goes on in any of these policies. This is all policies of the elite, and if you're betting in a certain way you possibly can, you might as well come out which way you're going to come out a little bit better. So right now, I think oil looks like a pretty strong bet, and these type of things are probably keep continuing, and the region is probably going to get more destabilized, and the supplies of oil are going to be greatly diminished worldwide, and you're going to see the American production come on for the local economy. I'm not exactly sure what the hell their policy is in the long term, but it does look like a fairly good bet that oil is going to come on pretty strong. And I'm thinking that does relate to some of these predictions about the S&P crashing, and there's going to be a big crash. Remember what happened last time? Oil prices went up first, then that crashed the markets. Then it crashed the markets. So if if the oil prices come up because of destabilization in the Middle East, and it stays destabilized, and it stays there isn't enough oil to supply the worldwide demand, prices are going to stay high, and it's going to be very difficult to recover economically. So right now, oil does look like a pretty decent bet.